Hello and welcome to another Wolf Time gaming video. Today we're going back to the Star Wars universe and we're going to paint up Director Krennic for Star Wars Legion. Now you may have seen this guy in the Rogue One film. I think he's absolutely fantastic. It's a very different uniform to what we've seen in the original trilogy and even the Clone Wars and things like that. We haven't really seen this white, so it was a bit of a challenge for me to paint him. So I thought, why not go ahead and pick this guy up, especially because he's going to be leading my Death Troopers and the Shore Troopers and all those guys that I've already based in that Rogue One sort of a theme. Before we get on to painting though, as usual, let's get that kettle on. Okay, so the first step once you've built the model and stuck him to the base is to actually base coat him. Now it's really important to do this because the plastic that these are made out of isn't very good at holding the paint on, so you need to get a decent base coat on there. I'm going to go with contrast paints because I think it's the quickest and easiest way to paint this guy. So I've sprayed him with Grey Seer from Games Workshop. It's a really good, very thin base spray that drops into the recesses really nicely and doesn't lose any of that detail. The problem if you go in and use any other sprays and things that you can get, especially if they're not specifically made for models, is that you lose a lot of that detail. But let's get on to the actual contrast paint. Saying that, the first step is actually the face and the eyes, which we're not going to necessarily use contrast paints for, but we're going to start with Corvus Black. Now this is to paint the eyes is actually quite a very difficult area, and I always find it to be the most difficult, so I always do it first. And as you can see, all I'm doing here is getting a very small brush, getting a little bit of black paint. It doesn't matter if it's Corvus Black or Abaddon Black or anything like that, and just essentially drawing a line where the eye is. So what you can see here is you get this dark area, this dark patch around the eyes. Now the second step with the eyes is to do the white areas, which is the eyeballs. Now you could leave the eyes black if you wanted to, if you didn't want to go into this much detail, but what you can see here is I've got a small amount of white paint on the brush, and all I'm doing is drawing a line in the center of the black line that I've already painted. Now I've found this is to be the easiest way of painting eyes and getting them looking really good. The final step with the eyes now is just to get a little bit of black paint again and then just drop it into the center of the eye, and that creates like the iris in the center of the eye. It's quite an easy step, but as I say, it can be really fiddly. You can see how small this is, so if you didn't want to paint the eyes at all, you could just go with contrast paint across the whole of the face, which is the next step we're going to, or you could just leave it at the black just to give it a little bit of difference. What I do advise is always try and get a black outline, because if you try and do it with white, as in just the eye itself, it tends to lose that detail. Now it's on to the actual painting of the skin, which is the first contrast paint we're going to use, which is Contrast Guilliman Flesh. Just take your time around this. You obviously don't want to go over that area that you've just painted around the eyeballs, and you don't want to be going over the uniform as well, because that obviously is going to be white or a white shade. Now what you can do is grab another paint for the skin, another contrast paint which is called Fyreslayer Flesh, and you can just drop it into the recesses to give you that a little bit more of a detail within the skin, and you can see it already looks fantastic. Now what I've done now is moved straight onto the white paint. Now as you can see, straight over the base coat we're popping a contrast paint on there, and it's the first time I've used this, called Contrast Apothecary White. Now I was a little bit skeptical using this, and I don't really like painting white ever. It's a bit of a pain, but I've found this is absolutely fantastic. This really does make the white shine really nicely, and it drops that very light grey into the recesses, which looks absolutely amazing. You'll see when we get to the finished product, but this I've found is brilliant at doing the white. Now, just to bring out some of the raised details around the bottom of the uniform and the edges of that sort of thing, what I've done is grabbed some Corax White, which is just a base coat, and all I'm doing is dry brushing this on there. If you haven't dry brushed before, the process essentially is to get a little bit of paint on a bigger tipped brush, wipe off the majority, so you've only got a very, very, very small amount of paint, almost as if it's dry, and then you just go around the model and essentially just coat it all over the raised areas, and you can see it just picks out those raised details and makes it look really, really good, really, really shiny. So now we're onto the belt and some of the other details, and I've just grabbed another contrast paint, which this time is Black Templar. What I'm doing is just a complete coat on the belt, the holster, all those sort of areas. Now, I could have done this first, and it would have saved having to be quite so could take my time quite so much, but the problem is with the white, it's very, very thin, this Apothecary White, and would have essentially gone over the top of the black, and I didn't want that, so that's why I'm doing it last. As you can see, I've also painted the gloves and his weapon as well, and then we're on to the actual trousers. So the trousers I've just done with sort of one coat of the Black Templar. Make sure you do put this on thick as well, and the boots I've actually gone over the top and putting it on a little bit thicker, so the boots essentially look darker than the rest of the trousers. Now, the silver areas, there's only a couple on this model, which is the belt buckle itself, and I've grabbed some Leadbelcher for that. Just painted a little bit of the silver on there. I've kind of dry brushed-ish. I just picked out the details on the gun, as you can see, so it leaves some of the recessed areas black, and I think this looks really, really good, especially with the Star Wars stuff. He's got like 2 pins holding his cloak on, so I've popped those, a little bit of silver paint on there as well, and just around his rank as well, just on his left hand breast pocket sort of area. I've just painted that silver as well before I've actually painted the rank colours onto there, and also and then we've got obviously the rank itself, which, looking at the screen or later on in the movie, it's red across the whole of the top and then blue across the whole of the bottom. I think this is what essentially I wanted to go with. I know in the start of the movie he only has 1 line, but you can just see on this model, I know it's quite small, it does definitely have 2 lines there. And I've just painted the top with Mephiston red and the bottom with Mackridge blue, but it doesn't really matter, any red or blue would do for that sort of detail in there. You can see with the black hair, it was a little bit too dark, so I wanted to bring that up a little bit, give him a bit of grey hair like he does have later on in the movies. So I've just grabbed a grey paint. In this instance, it's Mechanica Standard Grey, but any grey sort of paint would do. And I've done that dry brushing again in the same way as we did the white earlier on, and just picked out some of the detail on the hair to make it look like he's greying essentially. Then I've grabbed some of the shade paint, which is called Nuln Oil. This is really, really good for going over any of the silver areas. But what you can see I'm doing here is just edging along the cloak, because what I found was the cloak and the jacket actually blended into each other quite a lot. So all I've done is drawn a line between the cloak and the actual jacket itself, his top, and then I've gone over the top of all the rest of the silver areas, and that's it with the Nuln Oil. Don't cover anywhere else. Don't go over any of the white. Don't go over any of the trousers. There's absolutely no need, and especially avoid that face as well, because let the contrast paint do its job. But there you have it. That's the model completed. I know he's not based here, but essentially that's him complete, and you can see it was really, really simple to actually get him looking really good. And on the tabletop, you can see the jacket and the cloak that I was just talking about now differentiated really, really well, and I think he looks absolutely brilliant. Basing him, it's completely up to you how you base him. Obviously, what I've done is got a very, very fine sand, PVA glue, just put the sand on the base, painted around the bottom of the base black, so you're framing the model, and then popped a little bit of flock and a little bit of static grass just onto the base there, just to give it a little bit of interest. This is going to go with my Rogue One Imperial Forces that I've been picking up lately, so he's going to be leading it, so I wanted to go with that Rogue One sort of feel, which was obviously on the planet Scarif, so it's all sandy and that sort of thing, very tropical. But I really, really like him. I hope you like him, and I hope you enjoy watching this video as much as I've enjoyed painting it. thanks very much for watching, guys. Hit that subscribe button. Go and check out the other videos. There's loads of Star Wars videos, Star Wars Legion videos on there at the moment. I've got loads of the Armada stuff coming up. Look, all the Clone Wars stuff's recently been released, so make sure you do hit that subscribe button to see any of that future content. But otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.